Hello again everyone, I'm Ms. Davis and today we're going to be discussing kingdom fungi. So let's look at some general characteristics. First, fungus are composed of eukaryotic cells. Remember that this means that their cells contain a nucleus and various organelles, so they have complex cells. They are also non-motile, they don't move. Most fungus are unicellular. Now there is one exception. Yeast is the only unicellular form of fungi. Yeast like what you would use to bake bread and that sort of thing. They are also heterotrophic via absorption. Okay, they're going to actually absorb their food. Now the way they absorb this food is they secrete digestive enzymes and it decomposes the food or liquefies it and they absorb up the liquid. This process is called extracellular digestion because the digestion happens outside of their body. Now they can also reproduce asexually or sexually. Sometimes they do both, but it doesn't matter because both result in the formation of spores. Now spores is what they're going to release to grow new fungus. Most fungus are free living and they feed on dead organic material, which makes them very important to the ecosystem since they recycle nutrients. Others, however, are going to be parasites and they cause diseases in plants and animals. Now, human fungal infections are known as mycoses, which we will discuss a little bit later in this lecture. Some species of fungus form mutualistic relationships, meaning both organisms are going to benefit. The first group we see here are what we call the lichens. Lichens are when fungi and cyanobacteria are working together. The bacteria does the photosynthesis to provide food for both organisms, whereas the fungus is then going to provide the water and the minerals. Now these are going to grow on rocks and they actually form soil. Mycorrhiza is the next group, and this is where fungus works with plant roots. Again, the plant's going to provide the food and the fungus is going to help absorb minerals and water. Economically, fungi are important. They produce medicine such as antibiotics like penicillium and cyclosporins. They help produce foods like brie cheese. They are useful in the making of breads, beers, and wines. They are also consumed as delicacies like some mushrooms like truffles, morels, and portobello mushrooms. Not all fungi though, especially mushrooms, are good to eat. Some produce deadly poisons and some actually produce hallucinogens like LSD. Now fungi are composed of filaments called hyphae. The hyphae form the body of the fungus, which is then called the mycelium. The hyphae can be divided into sections by what we call septa, which you can see here in the picture. The cell wall of fungal cells is composed of what we call chitin or chitin. This is a type of complex sugar. During reproduction, spores are produced that may grow into new organisms. They can be dispersed by the wind, and remember they can be produced asexually or sexually. Now here's showing you more of like an up close too of how this hyphae looks. Remember, a group of hyphae is going to form the mycelium, which is the body of the fungus. There are three basic groups of fungi that we will discuss. They are grouped based on their differences in their life cycles, the structures that produce their spores, and also based on comparative molecular data like DNA. The three groups include Zygomycota, Ascomycota, and Basidiomycota. Now Phylum Zygomycota have sexual reproductive structures called zygospores. Now these zygospores are then going to produce sporangia, and you can see here how they'll release their spores. Now they lack septa in their hyphae cells, and examples are what we call Rhizopus. This is what we would call bread mold or black bread mold. Now the Phylum Ascomycota are the sac fungi. If they perform sexual reproduction, they develop an asci. But if they reproduce asexually, they do not produce this structure. This is the largest group of fungi, and it actually accounts for about 75% of all fungus. Their hyphae do have septa. Now, sexual Ascomycota include baking and brewing yeasts, which you can see here. They also include morels or truffles, and parasitic forms that can cause disease in plants. Plant diseases include leaf curl, which you see here, mildews or smuts. They can be Dutch elm disease, like you see here in the picture, where part of this tree is infected with the fungus. And then ergot, which infects grains, and you can see how it's altering the grain. Asexual Ascomycota do not display a sexual life cycle and are also referred to as fungi imperfecta, meaning imperfect fungus. These cause diseases in humans, and again they're called mycoses, which can infect the skin, deeper tissues, and they can even cause systemic infections, like infections throughout your whole body. Tinea can cause ringworm, athlete's foot, and jock itch. Aspergillosis causes swimmer's ear and lung infections, so this one's going to go a little deeper into the body. Candidiasis can cause thrush and vaginitis. Now here's a picture of thrush starting in a baby's mouth. It kind of looks like a cold sore, but this can spread through their whole mouth area. The last phylum is Basidiomycota, and their reproductive structure is called basidia. This is a club fungus. They produce basidiocarps that are the fruiting bodies, which make up the caps of these organisms. This group includes the mushrooms, toadstools, puffballs, and shelf fungi, as you can see here. They are also responsible for rusts and smuts that they're parasites to cereal crops. Some are delicacies like portobello and shiitake mushrooms, but again, others can be poisonous, so you have to be careful about which ones you eat. Now this lecture covers the very last part of chapter 18, so it's not the whole chapter 18, just the last part. The plant portion of that chapter will be covered in the next module. Now this is the last lecture before you take your first exam, so good luck, and if you have any questions, again, please let me know. Have a good day.